food lovers! If you clicked on this video, I assume it's because you wanted to learn what Japanese breakfast is like. I have experience living in Japan, and I wanted to show you 3 versions of Japanese breakfast that were very common during my year living there: traditional, hybrid, and modern. So for the traditional Japanese breakfast. So the first point I have to cover about a traditional Japanese breakfast is with traditional Japanese food, they don't really differentiate much between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In Western cuisine, we have, okay, well, these are the foods that you eat at breakfast. You eat bacon and eggs and pancakes and toast and cereal and oatmeal, and like those are breakfast foods. You only eat those at breakfast unless you're being kind of cute and like, ooh, I'm gonna have breakfast for dinner. Those are your set breakfast foods. And then lunch foods, oh, sandwiches, that's very lunchy. You don't ever have sandwiches for lunch or dinner or whatever. You know, we have these kind of unwritten rules about what is breakfast, what is lunch, and what is dinner. But with Japanese cuisine, traditional, hybrid, and otherwise, but especially with traditional, they don't really draw that line. They don't really draw that distinction between this is breakfast, this is lunch, and this is dinner. So as a result, their breakfast looks a lot like their dinner in traditional sense. So what is very common is you will have your gohan, or your rice, you will have your miso shiru, or your miso soup, and then you will have your okazu, which are various different dishes to go with your rice and your miso soup. These okazu dishes tend to be very tiny because there's many of them, and the theory behind them is that each dish is prepared using a different cooking technique. So you might have something grilled, you might have something steamed, you might have something sauteed, and you might have something raw, something pickled. That's the basic theory behind it. So now that I've talked about the theory a little bit, let me show you an example of a traditional Japanese breakfast.
So this is salted fish. In Japan, it's called a samma, and when fresh, it's one of my favorite fish. It's an autumn treat over there. This is salted, though, as you'll see. Be careful when you go to an Asian store. Make sure if you really want the salted fish, it'll say salted fish, but if you don't want salted fish, double, triple check to make sure that it's not salted, otherwise you might be unpleasantly surprised. For my miso soup, I have some tofu cut into very, very small cubes. I have a scallion sliced very finely. Traditionally you use a Japanese onion, which is called negi, but I couldn't find that at the Asian market, so scallion is a pretty good stand-in. And then I have this cut wakame. This is dried seaweed, and it is amazing. It's very cheap, very nutritious, keeps forever in your pantry. I've got an affiliate link below if you want to buy some online, because it can be kind of hard to find in grocery stores sometimes. And yeah, throw this in your instant ramen, throw this in your salads, rehydrate it in a little water. It's very versatile and very traditional in miso soup. And this combination here, the wakame, the onion, and the tofu, is my favorite combination for miso soup. And for the miso soup, I have this miso, and this is dashi-iri miso, and it's white miso. I like white miso. There are different kinds of miso that you can get, but I like white. It's milder, and I'm not a big fan of miso. I only like miso soup, so I usually get white. Dashi-iri means that it has dashi in it, and dashi is the Japanese broth. So it's really easy. All you have to do is add water, and you basically have miso soup. Little fish like this is often grilled in a salamander. It's a kind of broiler, and most Japanese ovens come equipped with a special little fish area for broiling or grilling fish. I don't have that. I'm in an apartment in Washington State, so I'm just using a nonstick pan and a little bit of oil on high heat. Now I just put a little bit of the dashi-iri miso into some lightly, very gently simmering water. You don't want to boil your miso soup ever, really. And you want to slowly dissolve it in. And you know, the traditional Japanese technique is you put it in a spoon and you put a little water in there and stir it around with your chopsticks first, but it's fine to put it in this way. It just takes a little longer. So everyone's tastes are different, so I'm just going to taste my miso broth to see if it is the level I want it to be at. Nice and mild, that's how I like it. And you really don't need much wakame. This is actually quite a bit of wakame, but I like a lot of wakame. And you just need the onions to heat through a little bit, the tofu to heat through a little bit, and the wakame to rehydrate. And your miso soup is ready. Meanwhile, our fish is looking pretty good, almost done. That happened very fast. This fish is only 1/4 pound, so no surprise there. And in here, I'm just very quickly blanching off some spinach. Spinach takes like 1 minute to cook. And ideally, I would have kept these spinaches together at the root. That's usually how they would cook it, so that it stays together You know, all the green parts stay together, all the stems stay together. But that's not how it was sold at the supermarket. So I'm making do with this. So I'm just seasoning it very lightly with just a tiny dash of soy and a tiny dash of sesame oil. Bonito flakes would be pretty traditional here, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to add a little sesame seed, which also is somewhat traditional. So let's go over all of the components of this traditional Japanese breakfast. Here we have our boiled element, which is spinach seasoned with a little sesame oil and soy sauce. We have our steamed element and the ever ubiquitous rice or gohan. Here we have something pickled. In a traditional Japanese meal, there will pretty much always be something pickled. And full disclosure, I do not like Japanese pickles. I can't stand them because they're fermented and I hate them. So that is actually, in fact, an American dill pickle, just to represent. It's not also that uncommon to have these little tiny sheets of nori that you can wrap up your rice and fish with during breakfast. The ever ubiquitous miso soup, this one with wakame, tofu, and onion. The grilled salted fish, in this case samma or sari. Little shredded daikon on top, which is totally not shredded jicama because I hate daikon. And a little scallion just for flourish. And then for the little dessert version of their breakfast, some fresh seasonal fruit. And apple is pretty common. Apple, nashi, kiwi, anything that's a little more traditional and in season. So let's dig in. This is good. It's barely salted at all, actually. Pleasant surprise. Now what they like to do is take a piece of this nori and you put it on the rice and take a little scoop of rice like that. Let's try some of this spinach. That's really good. I like spinach this way. The miso soup you drink, they even use the verb nomu, which is to drink instead of to eat. And you literally do sort of drink it like it's a drink.
So for my pedantic commentators, yes, other things that could go in a traditional breakfast are things like natto, maybe tamagoyaki instead of fish. Maybe there would be some other braised vegetable like daikon. There might be some raw tofu or even some grilled tofu instead of fish. And some other versions of a traditional Japanese breakfast are something more simple like tamago gohan, which is just a raw egg cracked on top of a bowl of rice and you mix it in, or furikake gohan, which is just rice with some like spicy things like dried fish and other things just kind of sprinkled on there. The breakfast could also be a lot more minimal than that, like just a piece of fish and some rice and some miso soup and maybe a pickle. It's not literally 100% what I showed, that is just an example. So now on to the what I call hybrid Japanese breakfast. This is basically the traditional Japanese breakfast model, but with a modern twist. So this means that their protein, instead of being something like grilled fish, it might be something a little more modern or up to date, like tamagoyaki, or fried eggs, medamayaki, or sausage, or bacon, or ham, or sometimes even if your mom is making your obento for the day and it's karaage, which is fried chicken, maybe she'll just put karaage in your breakfast as well because she's already making it for your lunch. The protein has some more options, and oftentimes it'll be processed breakfast meat, but sometimes it can still be fish. Another element that might change is sometimes the rice might be replaced with bread or toast. Now there's something very cute about Japanese cuisine where they have rice with every meal. It's very traditional for them to have rice and non-rice. So their modern version of that is often bread and non-bread. And they kind of think sometimes, well, I have to have either rice or bread. I can never have a meal without rice or bread. So sometimes they might replace the rice element with bread. Another element that they might replace is the miso soup. They might replace that with another soup that is not miso soup. It's not going to be a hearty, chunky soup like a beef stew. It's probably going to be a simple soup like a consomme or like a tomato cream soup or a cream of corn soup. The soup is meant to be more a drink than a food. Another element with the hybrid Japanese breakfast, it is not uncommon to have a salad on the side of your breakfast, dressed or undressed. My general experience was actually undressed salad, and maybe sometimes there was like a lemon wedge at the side that I could squeeze on.
These These are most of the components of the hybrid Japanese breakfast, or the modern traditional oxymoron Japanese breakfast. Some kind of processed meat maybe instead of fish, or you could still have fish, but processed meat like these little smokies, like this is their version of breakfast sausage oftentimes, and you'll find these in their obento a lot as well. And I got a couple eggs. Shredded cabbage was extremely common, and then maybe a few tomato slices. While they do have rice and miso soup with their modern traditional breakfast, it's not that uncommon for them to have some other kind of soup, and like an instant cream of corn soup was quite common. So I splurged and bought this very expensive cream of corn instant soup mix. It was like $1.50 or something. It's like, I could probably make something much tastier than this for cheaper, but here we are. So I'm going to follow these directions and make this instant cream of corn soup. So yeah, just an undressed salad. I'm not going to put 4 tomato slices because that's unlucky. Okay, the directions say to combine the packet with a cup of cold water and then mix it into 3 to 4 cups of simmering water. So this is going to make a lot of soup. Hopefully my boyfriend will have some. Okay, I'm rehydrating some corn kernels, it looks like. It's so weird. I like never cook instant food. I'm always awestruck by it. Wow, look, they're expanding. What? It's like magic. Okay, instant soup. Let's see if you're worth your salt. See, that was a pun because instant food tends to be high in sodium. Okay. Looks very thin. And I usually don't go for sunny side up eggs. I like over medium. I don't like the yolks being super runny, but actually it's going to be a good dressing for my undressed salad. So sunny side up eggs. Okay, so this was incidentally pretty much the very first Japanese breakfast I ever had in Japan. I had the sunny side up eggs, which grossed me out because I'm better with runny eggs now, but back then I liked my eggs cooked hard. I could not eat runny yolk, but I sucked it up and ate it because I didn't want to be impolite. The undressed shredded cabbage and few tomato slices, the little smokies, which they're like, oh yeah, these are sausages. I'm like, they're like little tiny miniature hot dogs. They're not sausages. Why are you eating these at breakfast? But they're nice. I like them at breakfast. Look, now, I love them. You're still likely going to have some fresh fruit. Usually never a whole piece of fruit in its entirety. It's usually like cut up into pieces. And sometimes they'll still have rice with this style of meal, but sometimes they'll have like toast or bread. And then this instant corn soup, which I liked a lot when I had it in Japan, but it's definitely worth its salt in that it is very salty because it is instant processed food. But strangely addictive because it's processed food. And also it's not that uncommon for them to drink some coffee, which in this case is totally not just a strong cup of tea to look like coffee because I don't like coffee. Incidentally, this is the first time I've ever cooked sunny side up eggs. So what I like to do is kind of destroy the runny yolk and just sort of use that to dress the cabbage. And in a way, like it becomes kind of like a mayonnaise-based salad dressing.
Other sides that people might have in their hybrid Japanese breakfast is a little tiny bottle of Yakult, which is a sort of an energy boost, yogurty sort of drink, yogurt itself, maybe a little cup of milk or juice, maybe a couple slices of cheese, etc. Again, the hybrid breakfast that I happen to show is not the end-all be-all. There's lots of little variations within that. Now onto the modern Japanese breakfast. So another thing that you could call this breakfast is the I'm in a hurry breakfast. So it'll be somewhat similar to the American I'm in a hurry breakfast, where either you make yourself a piece of toast or just have some bread and a cup of coffee at home, or you stop by the drive-thru, or in Japan's case, the convenience store, to pick up something really quick on your way to work or school. My most common modern breakfast in Japan was a huge slice of toasted, really high quality bread with butter and jam and a cup of milk tea.
To make milk tea, you put a cup of milk into a pot on medium-low heat. You don't want to rush this. And add some tea leaves. Give it a little stir. And then just gently warm this until it simmers. And after about 10 minutes, as you can see, it's just starting to simmer a little bit. If you've left it alone, I've been stirring it along the way, but if you've left it alone, a skin will have developed by now. So you would incorporate the skin back in there just to make sure that the tea leaves have some more contact with the simmering milk. So when it's simmering like this, I like to let it simmer for a couple minutes and then I turn it off and serve it. So you'll often have this skin of milk with the tea grounds kind of forming on top, so I take that out first. And put a little strainer on your teacup. And I like to add just a little tiny bit of sugar.
Now, you could go to a bakery to get some good shokpan, or a nice bread that you like. Or you can be Sarah and bake your own bread at home. So yeah, I made my own milk bread, and I have a video up here if you want to see that part in detail.
It's so good.
Even things like cereal, while they were virtually non-existent when I was in Japan a while ago, now they're becoming more popular in Japan. Those sorts of things are options as well, but you're usually not going to have like all the various different dishes with this modern breakfast. It's going to be very streamlined, very just one thing and tea or coffee. And as I said, the other version of this is stopping at the convenience store for something. Japanese convenience stores are amazing. They have a lot of like actual real food options that you can get that are pretty decent quality. It's not uncommon for somebody who's in a hurry to stop by the convenience store on the way to work or school to get onigiri, which are rice balls, or little cute sandwiches like egg salad or tuna salad, or even fruit sandwiches, or the assortment of stuffed buns, like pizza buns, or buns filled with anko, which is the red bean paste, or buns filled with curry, or pizza even. They have like buns filled with pizza, or the more traditional nikuman, which are just, the Chinese steamed meat buns. And I showed you guys how to make milk tea at home, but I'd say it's probably more common for Japanese people to get their milk tea either from a convenience store or from vending machines. You can get hot milk tea and hot coffee from vending machines in Japan, which is really cool. So that was just an overview of what Japanese breakfast is like. If there's one takeaway I got from living in Japan and eating breakfast there, it is that you can eat whatever you want for breakfast. You don't have to limit yourself to breakfast foods or to maybe leftovers from last night. You can have anything that you want for breakfast. So I encourage you all to experiment. Try eating different things for breakfast that you wouldn't ordinarily consider to be breakfast foods. If you want to know what Japanese lunches are like, let me know and I might do a video about that. For now, happy eating! Thanks for watching. Since this channel is small and not monetized, you can best support it by subscribing and by liking, commenting, and sharing the videos. You can also buy food and cooking items from my Amazon store to give me a cut of the profits at no extra cost to you. Also, add me on Facebook for recipes and more. Bye, food lovers!